Hey guys, Dov here, back with another Lord highlight. In this case, Lady highlight. We're here with Hellebron. Yeah, one of the more interesting legendary lords in the game, in that she actually gets worse the better mount, or the higher tier mount you put her on. And I actually think her best form is just like this on horseback. So we'll talk more about that in just a minute. But here, Happy Puppy, who has a Twitch channel of her own, definitely go check her out. She's brought Hellebron against Bretonnia. Interesting matchup. I think the Dark Elves definitely has some good tools here, but she's got Dark Riders, Cold One Knights, Slaanesh Harvesters, bunch of Fear Spears, 4 Scourge Runner Chariots, and a Deathcaster. Enchantress leading the way with some Paladins here. We've got Foot Squires, a Peasant Mob for Bretonnia, more Foot Squires, 4 Knights of the Realm, including Knights of the Lion Hearted for some magic damage, and a Trebuchet. So yeah, what does Hellebron bring to the table? Well, we can kind of see her unit card here. She's got this, first of, well, her stats, I guess. We'll start with that. Very fast on a horse, only 15 armor, but 48 defense, 78 melee attack with poison damage, almost 500 weapon damage total with 330 armor piercing. Comes with Frenzy, 20% physical resistance. She can also take an item that gives her a lot of magic resistance in an area of effect, which she does not have here. But she also has this attack buff and leadership. Damage buff also causes Rampage, but Gaze of Cain, castable at a distance, is kind of a nice comparison to like a distance Hammer of Sigmar that also has some additional effects. Does have her own sort of weakish Mortis engine, and can also level up her vigor and weapon damage through that Blood Frenzy. Looking at the rest of the battlefield here, you can see these Dark Riders came in to try and disrupt the Trebuchet, but it wasn't quite enough. This one was also from a recent stream of mine, but I figured I would bring it to you because Hellebron's just awesome. You don't see her often enough, in my opinion. Yeah, the chariots there. Looks like the Enchantress tried to drop her Comet on the chariots, but a little bit of a swing and a miss. That's fine. At least she remembered to use it, which is not more than I could. But now, yeah, Murderous Prowess kicking off, and you can see that Crone Hellebron is engaged here, and although she's not, you know, necessarily fighting, looks like she's trying to pull away from the spears so that she can get in a position to engage. In general, the backline harass has been pretty decent. This kind of crushing this flank here pretty decisively with the Cold One Knights and the Slaanesh Harvesters. They can now come in, do a bunch of damage, and the Knights of the Realm, although they're pretty good, they're just getting way bogged down here. There's a lot of mobility for the Dark Elves, and they've seen off Dark Riders, they've killed a lot of the Fear Spears, but it's just a lot at this point. They get a nice engagement here, and you can see Hellebron's making her way over. She's all juiced up on the Blood of Cain. Got that red aura going around herself. She's, I believe, going to throw this red aura over here for the attack buff. No? I guess they don't really need it. Yeah, she's coming over to just absolutely annihilate the Enchantress. Very, very strong horse combatant. Her main downside, of course, low armor and HP. Not the best melee defense in the world, but she does have pretty good resistance capabilities. Here she gets in and just destroys the Enchantress. You can see massive hit right there. She does anti-infantry damage, but just so much weapon damage in general, up to 550, 100 charge bonus with Frenzy and Murderous Mastery active. That is absolutely insane there. Oh man, and there goes the Red Mist in a very decisive engagement as the Knights of the Realm were just about to rear charge. She hits that in rage, and leadership in particular helps keep the Slaanesh Harvesters, the Cold One Knights, fighting where they would have routed otherwise. There, finally, the Slaanesh Harvesters rout. Cold One Knights still fighting though, and with 53 attack with that buff, they're hitting a lot harder, just devour the Knights of the Realm. That actually got a really nice rear charge there, and the Enchantress is just deletified so hard. Paladin likewise now faces his doom against the nasty Crone as the blood mist fades. Everything goes back to this sort of dead green color of Sylvania. And oh man, that one Cold One Knight sticking the Knight of the Realm. What a absolutely despicable act.
Our strength is waning.
Very appropriate to the Dark Elves that, yeah, I think the Paladin just gets straight up killed. No, it looks like he may actually survive to fight another day. Knights of the Realm bail him out, but the Crone takes no prisoners. Well, maybe she takes some prisoners, but we won't talk about what happens to them. Nice purple sun in the background, hits a bunch of those foot squires and everything else. There are quite a few infantry left, but the chariots, of course, of the Dark Elves cackle at the concept of infantry. Just ride over them with reckless abandon. Mortis engine effect also starts to kick in from Hellebron, and I have to do some testing. At one point it was like overpoweredly broken, and at one point it was like non-functionally broken. I think it's in a place now where it's just kind of okay. I'd have to do some testing to really determine if it's worth it at the end of the day, but nice. Spirit Leech plus that effect at the same time gives this kind of cool color aura. Pretty lights, and death. And there is victory for Hellebron. Very fun stuff. Well played to both players. Really like Happy Puppy's build there. Very fun. And I actually have used a build similar to this recently in some practice games with Rider of Rohan. I don't know that I'm going to show them, but I'll kind of talk about the build in general. 60 kills for Hellebron herself, very nice. 72 for the Sorceress of Death. Nice kills on all these cav. 132 in particular for Dark Riders, excellent. Dark Riders are a really potent unit if you use them right. Yeah, Cold One Knights here. Slaanesha's Harvesters also. One particular thing, too, about Doomfire Warlocks, we'll talk more about in a little bit, is they just don't have the best attack stats. They have good damage, but anyway. On Davina's side here, Knights of the Realm actually came in and did some pretty cost-effective damage. Some chevrons go around here, 66 kills, 50, 55. But the one here, Knights of the Lion-Hearted, kind of got crumped, and just Happy Puppy having a very good positioning and play there, overloading on the one side with all the cavalry and collapsing from there. So, Hellebron, let's talk about some things. First, the mount situation. So yeah, she's best on foot or on horseback. I don't even know. On foot might be a little bit risky. She's still a pretty strong combatant, but very squishy. The horse adds a tiny bit of HP and the ability to run the heck away, which can be very important. And in terms of her ability set, Witch Brew is one that you may not see super often because it causes her to rampage for 47 seconds. That's a long time to be losing control of your very squishy lord. I tend not to take this one myself, and most people would agree it's risky to take. But this one, 22% magic resistance for herself and all allies in an area of effect. Given that on horseback she starts with 20% physical resistance, this in effect gives her 20% damage resistance baseline, right? Which is awesome because she has no armor, especially when you consider, the reason being that when you add physical and magic resistance together, you're resistant to all types of damage, and therefore it equals damage resistance, right? So to stack that even further, she is kind of expensive if you kit her out what I would consider quote-unquote fully on horseback. 2,200 is starting to be a bit to pay for a horse lord, but given that she's very good at combat and has this strong ability set, can make good use of her. To help protect her as well, I ran in my build a master on horseback to stack even more physical resistance from Guardian. That way, and not only that, but he himself is an anti-large armor piercing combatant with 50 defense, also has 92 speed on that Dark Elven steed. And you can take as well this Helm of Many Eyes if you want even a little bit more armor and melee attack for her. Not that she needs the attack, but the armor. Plus 7 isn't much, but every little bit helps when you've only got 15, right? So the extra physical resistance and everything, quite nice. The extra heroic presence, and then that still leaves you room for your caster when, whatever you want to bring. Probably myself, I would go with Manticore summons here, but that's just the meta right now. And that would also give you the ability to cause some terror without having to bring an expensive terror unit. And you could go nice and wide, and like one thing I did, Doomfire Warlocks, again, great weapon damage, pretty bad attack though, and not the greatest charge in the world either for the cost. But if you get Hellebron and you throw her attack buff on a blob of even like 2 of them, but I took a build with I think 3 or 4 maybe, I'd have to go back and check. They'll suddenly do a lot more, right, in that sustained combat. Their poison magic attacks can hit hard, especially when you consider you've got Soul Blight potentially supporting them. Malicious Harvesters can also support with Word of Pain and a Soul Stealer in a cavalry engagement. They get a lot better when you use them with Crone Hellebron, although this still can be a tricky proposition to use well. They're very squishy still, but regardless, Hellebron herself, probably a pretty underrated support lord, and I find Dark Elves in general have probably most, I would say, not most, but more unappreciated lords, underrated lords than any other faction. That's mostly just because Malekith and Marathi have been dominant for so long, and Marathi even more so now than anyone else. You've also got these Supreme Sorceresses that are very cost-effective in your various, kind of guises here. But don't forget about, I mean, we've talked already about the Crossbow Dreadlord. High Beastmaster is also very good. Planning on talking about him soon. Hellebron's not a bad pick. Malice is also here. Lokir, same thing. But yeah, definitely consider bringing Crone Hellebron on horseback. On Manticore, she's terrible because she is 45 armor only, and all the other Dark Elf Manticores have more armor. Like if we come in here and look, even the Supreme Sorceress on the Manticore gets 80 armor and also still retains Murderous Prowess somehow, which it seems like an oversight. Oh no, High Beastmaster does get it too. I don't think she gets Murderous Mastery on her Manticore, does she? Oh no, she still does. But again, only 45 armor. She does have armor piercing Manticore, which she's the only one that has an armor piercing Manticore, but a 38 defense, 75 charge is okay, but we saw there on horseback she has, I mean, the same, right? So you are getting a benefit of a little bit more HP, causing terror and flying, but you do get a less attack, a less defense in particular, and considering how squishy she is, that's a problem. Only 45 armor in comparison to other Manticores. And the cart, oh, the cart. Yeah, just don't even with this thing. At one point it was useful, but recently they quote-unquote fixed the attack animations to where the witches that are standing on the side, like the witch elves that are standing on the side, they'd throw daggers. Previously, those would actually deal real damage, and as a result, this thing was arguably maybe doing too much damage. But when they quote-unquote fixed it, now it's basically useless and will do very little. She does get even more magic resistance when she's on that mount, but she loses out on her physical resistance. And again, that's another thing about the Manticore too. Again, loses out on physical resistance, and the weapon strength and charge doesn't really go up at all. And that's something that most of the time, obviously, like for the Supreme Sorceress, terrible stats. When you put her on the Manticore, though, suddenly 445 weapon damage and 50 charge. Like, same thing with like your Chaos Sorcerer even. Like, not the best stats on horseback or on foot, but put him on a Manticore and suddenly he's a decent combatant, right? So, Hellebron, though, it doesn't really increase her offensive power much. It barely at all increases her defensive power, and in fact, in some way, decreases it. And as a result, just keep her on horseback. She's also ridiculously way too expensive on both of these mounts, so there's that. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoy. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.